Luqman Nation, this is Jackie Luqman.
And I'm at the Shaheed Luqman.
And this is Live in Luqman Nation, the most controversial show on the internet. And tonight, we're doing a special little show because a lot of things are going on right now in the progressive movement, in the Black liberation movement, in politics, in society. And we're seeing a lot of really messy things happening, and we've experienced some of that ourselves, and we really wanted to take a few minutes tonight just to talk about how now is not the time for entertaining frauds in the movement. And I don't care what the movement is. I don't care if it's the progressive movement. I don't care if it's the Black liberation movement. I don't care if it's in politics in your particular political party. But if you've noticed, I don't know if you realize it, but the white male patriarchal empire is crumbling. It is crumbling under its own weight. It's crumbling under its own corruption, centuries of corruption. So we're at a point in the history of the social evolution of this country where we really just don't have time for frauds in the movement. So, we know it's a Tuesday night. You guys are not used to seeing us on Tuesday night. So we're going to give you a couple of minutes to hop on the stream. Share this video, invite your friends. Because, we're not going to try to, browbeat people. Because it is kind of a ridiculous spate of incidences that have happened. But this is stuff we got to talk about. Because our future really does hinge on us understanding where to go and how to get there. But we can't do that if we keep clinging to these ridiculous falsehoods and bad behavior, right? So what do you have to say about that?
Well, first of all, we've been seeing. I've kind of the title, because you did this title, and I when you told me about the title, I thought it was pretty interesting. But before we go into that, there was first a couple of things that I wanted to talk about before we get to that. And one of the things is that the Trump administration has signed an order getting rid of 60,000 Haitians who sought refuge in this country after the earthquake
in 2010.
In 2010, and so their reasoning is that, oh well, Haiti's good now, and it's good enough for you people to return. So according to what I've read, is the fact that they're going to give them another year to get their stuff together. Now, mind you, Haiti just suffered not only that earthquake in 2010, they've been hit by a series of Category 4 and 5 hurricanes within the last few years.
Right.
The fact that all of the aid that Haiti hasn't even been built up from the 2010 earthquake, in spite of the fact that the Red Cross and other organizations have received so much money for the reconstruction of Haiti.
Right.
The fact that Hillary Clinton was involved in all of that. With the Clinton Foundation allegedly, and
the malfeasance
the Clinton Foundation and the alleged mismanagement of funds, where they're concerned, and so from 2010 to 2017, Haiti has been hit pretty hard. So and so now that we're talking about honesty. And lack of honesty in our political discourse.
Right.
The Trump administration need to get honest and just say that these immigration policies directed at Muslim countries, the Haitian decision to return 60,000 Haitians, their obsession with Mexican immigration and the DACA and all of this stuff is part of the Bannonite doctrine of getting rid of folks of color. When they say "Make America Great Again," a lot of folks laughed at many of us who've seen through that
that smoke
that smoke screen, that slogan, and realizing that, hey, Make America great again, make America white again.
Right.
And so, when Bannon was in there, and trust me, he still keeps in touch with Trump. But the
Yeah.
Bannonite philosophy of white supremacy
Mm-hmm.
and the is the fact that Bannon and people like him, they are afraid of the demographics of this country becoming more and more black and brown
Mm-hmm.
through immigration and others. They effectively they effectively put a checkmate on our population growth as African Americans. They effectively done that
Okay.
to the point where we always remained 12, 13% of the population.
Right.
No matter what we do, we're
Mm-hmm.
always that. So there's always been policies in place to keep our population manageable. But then now to account for people of color coming in from other places. And, so this whole thing about the Haitians, and we know that the United States government has always treated the Haitians differently. Even during the time of when it was allowed, when Cuban refugees were allowed to come here,
Right.
And nothing was said, and but yet Haitians were turned back. So when Cubans were coming here looking for asylum,
Mm-hmm.
they were accepted. Well, all they had to do was get here.
Right.
But
Right.
then, but then Haiti, the Haitians were always treated different. So we're looking at a racial policy of depopulating the United States of people of color, especially of not adding more people of color
Right.
to this country.
Mm-hmm.
And we're also looking at the racialized policies. It just came out in the news that black men are still receiving harsher sentences in the court system,
Mm-hmm.
which is even worse than 2 years ago.
Right.
So now it's even worse than 2 years ago. So what we're seeing at play is racialized policies that, in my view, are meant to deal with the population growth of people of color. So we just need in our political discourse to not be fooled. And some people say, "Oh, well, that's a conspiratorial argument, statement on my behalf." But then, looking at the history of this country, this is not the first time this country has adopted racialized policies
Mm-hmm.
to deal with black people,
Mm-hmm.
or with Chinese people, with people
Right.
of color.
Native people. Hispanic
Yeah. I
people.
mean, Japanese people in internment camps.
Mm-hmm.
Having a ban in Chinese immigration here.
Right.
So this is not the first time that the United States government has adopted racial policies and adopted them as laws in
Mm-hmm.
order to subjugate, oppress, or eliminate, in the terms of the Native Americans, try to eliminate people based upon racial ideas.
Exactly. And for us to not understand that what we're talking about when we say the white male patriarchal empire, we're not just talking about just the recent incidences
Mm-hmm.
of sexual assault and abuse that have come out. That's a part of it. That is a function of this empire of megalomaniacal power that white men have built in this country. The fact that we have policies that were created to exclude the other, and those other people were people of color. But I don't understand how a lot of white women didn't think that they were going to be included in that abuse of power at some point too, because that's all this is.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that that's such an incredibly uncomfortable thing to say. I know, y'all. I'm sorry, but it's true. It's still true because, people have come to the conclusion that the problem in rape culture is white men. Just like we've come to the conclusion that the problem with mass shootings is white men. The problem with violence in America, largely white men. It comes from the system of white supremacy. And that system of white supremacy is built on the premise that everybody who's not a white man exists in this country to serve the interests of white men. And white men have used white women against people of color, especially men of color. And for too long, some white women have kind of believed that they weren't included in that power paradigm too, until now, unfortunately. And I understand that this culture of rape and sexual assault and sexual abuse, sexual harassment has gone on in America, in every aspect of America that exists, just like white supremacy exists in every aspect of America. This the sexual exploitation and abuse of women has gone on right along with it. But for some women, and here's the tricky part, because you brought this up earlier, and it is a tricky part. For some women, because they were able to share in some of that power, they kind of went along with some of that stuff. Where you have some instances now, like with the story that's coming out about Charlie Rose. And Charlie Rose is one of our favorite newsmen, one of our favorite talk show hosts. Stories are coming out about the women who dismissed the allegations against Charlie Rose earlier in his career because they just felt like, how Charlie wouldn't do that kind of thing. But some of those women really felt like, well, look, my aspirations are tied to Charlie Rose's aspirations. So if I let him get taken down, then I get taken down too. And I know that not a lot of people are going to say that about this issue with sexual assault and sexual harassment right now, but I am, because it's true. It's absolutely not all white women who feel this way, obviously, because plenty of white women are victims. And the white women who take that perspective, who take the side of the abuser, yeah, they're victims too. They don't even know they're victims, but they are, because all they're doing is perpetuating this cycle of abuse that they're also in, that they're having to cover for a criminal, basically. So that they're being abused too. So then, there's that aspect of it, and all of this that we've known that we have known has gone on in the halls of power in this country, and we're seeing that it's happening everywhere. It's PBS, CBS. It's happened at the Huffington Post. It's happened at Disney now. Obviously in Hollywood. We're just Congress. Unfortunately, there were accusations of sexual assault against Representative John Conyers that surfaced today, that came out today. I mean, Al Franken. Nobody is immune. Not even those of us in this progressive movement.
Right.
Nobody's immune.
And I was so glad that yesterday that Benjamin Dixon had you and Anoa on there talking about these things.
That was a great show.
It was. I also wanted to ask our audience that if you're having any problems with the video quality, just let us know. But anyway, yeah, I was listening to you guys on the panel yesterday, and you guys brought up some good points. I had to take a risk, and I am going to take a risk on some of the. It was a great. Yeah, you're right. It was a great conversation, and I'm going to take a risk on some of the ways that I see this whole situation with the sexual harassment and throughout. I think part of this, it is patriarchy. It's definitely patriarchy. And when we say white male patriarchy, in this country, we got to look at the dynamics of when we say white male patriarchy.
Okay.
Because the patriarchal system of white supremacy doesn't mean that you just have to be a white man in order to be an offender.
Oh, that's great. That's a great.
You see what I mean? So it's not the fact that it's you have to be a white male to be an offender, even though the majority are white males, because then you mentioned Conyers, Russell Simmons was just accused.
Oh, I forgot about him.
Right. What all of these people have in common, whether it's the Conyers, the Simmons, the Cosbys, the Weinsteins, and all these people, these were all men with power.
Right.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And when you talk about the black males, and I'm going somewhere with this. When you talk about black males who got caught up in that net,
Mm-hmm.
you know, you're going out here fishing for tuna, you get a few dolphins in there and stuff because they all swim together.
Uh-huh.
So you got these powerful black men that swim in the dolphins, the powerful black male dolphins
Uh-huh.
that's swimming with the white male tunas, and when the net comes, they all get caught up.
Uh-huh.
And so what happens is the fact that you know, you're talking about a culture in this country that is also and we also have to look at the capitalist roots of it.
Right.
So we're looking at commodity. Women are commodities.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So we're looking at capitalism, and we're looking at women for the most part, and not that we are dismissing the behavior of the men.
Right.
What we're looking at is the fact that in America, things are commodified in a capitalist society. Women's sexuality is commodified.
Mm-hmm.
So in these relationships that we have between female interns or whatever relationship they have with these men, the common theme that you've seen throughout this is that they were trying to gain favor from these men, whether it was for a job with Cosby, whether it's for a chance in the entertainment, some form of entertainment, Weinstein, you know, whether it was the act in a movie. It was always based on receiving something from these men.
Right, because they were the ones who had the power.
Well, they're the ones that had the power. And then a lot of times is that your talent alone isn't enough. So what in capitalism? I mean, we've seen how capitalism has basically reduced labor down to where labor's not even respected. Mm-hmm. So now the worker has to bargain with other things now. It's not. Right. I can't just trade my skills and my labor to the capitalist in order to be treated with respect.
Right.
So now, you know, other things have to be, have to be bargained.
Right.
And in this situation, a lot of times you see where, and like I said, not excusing the behavior, but what's not being discussed is the commodification of female sexuality.
Right.
And how that plays in gaining favor from rich, powerful men.
Yeah, and I mean, that like we were saying earlier, that's tricky, right? That's really touchy, because what we don't want to suggest is that, you know, women are throwing themselves at men, you know, to get a job. You can't act like that doesn't happen.
But
right?
But my point is that's why I want to clarify.
Right.
It's not the women that I'm blaming. Exactly. What I'm saying is looking at the structure. We never look at the dynamics that create such exploitation.
Exactly. That is, I'm so glad you brought that up, because we have a situation where, like you brought up the like with workers, with jobs. All right, well and I know some people are like, well, what do you mean? What other things are workers having to bargain with, right? Well, I can go in and say I'm a great technical writer, and this is my resume, and my resume is 10, 12 years long. It actually is, as a technical writer, and I've done a lot, all this stuff. But because there are 87,000 other technical writers who might not have as much skill as I do, and capitalism being what it is, corporations will pay the least to get what they want. But if so, they'll tell me, well, if you want the job, then I can hire somebody for this job with just as much experience, who will take less vacation. Mm-hmm. Right? So it's this trade-off of what we're willing to settle for in order to get what we want, and sometimes, unfortunately, in a capitalist society, what we need. Because, again, we're not talking about people in situations where, like, we're going furniture shopping for stuff we don't really need. We're talking about people who need employment, right? People who are in positions where they are going on a job interview with people who are in a position to give them a job. And one of the conditions for employment is that you have to show me your breasts, or you have to let me touch you, or in the case of Anita Hill, if you want this higher position in this firm, you have to sleep with me. This is the reality. There's so many women in positions of advancement, I guess, and that's probably not even an accurate way to put it. But this is the position that so many women have been placed in when the person who holds the power over whether they get a job or a raise or a promotion is a man. And not all of the time, but you see how prevalent it is. If Me Too didn't show you how prevalent this problem is, I don't know what else to tell you. But it's not just in positions where people are making decisions over whether somebody gets a job or not, or tenure at a university, or, we're talking about one of the oldest forms, the oldest venues of sexual abuse and exploitation that exists, and that is the position of the domestic worker.
Mm-hmm.
And what has been the story of Black and Latino women who were domestic workers in this country being the sexual playthings of the men of the house? And even before that, look at what happened to women who to enslaved women. So this dynamic of men who were in positions of power, they didn't even really have to offer anything of value for the women that they abused. They just had to be in a position where the women felt like they couldn't tell them no, because if they told them no, the women would lose something. That's the kind of power dynamic, I think, that we have to keep in mind when we're looking at these situations of sexual abuse in like the progressive movement.
Right.
And to some extent, let's be real, because we always say in Luqman Nation, we're going to bring you into the laundry room of Black folks in the Black conscious movement. Because we got some serious problems with some woman-hating brothers who call themselves conscious, but they don't want to take direction, or they can't take an opinion from a woman. And sometimes those issues, we saw it in the Black Panther Party.
Yeah, we did. Yeah.
Where Anoa brought up last night, and she was absolutely right. People, aside from people forgetting the women of the civil rights movement and the Black Panther Party, they also lionize, put on a pedestal people like Eldridge Cleaver, who was a rapist. I mean, not like, Eldridge is fondling people on the slide type of, I'm sorry, I had to show you that I'm fondling him on the slide. There you go. No, he wasn't, it wasn't like, fondling on the slide. He was a rapist, period. And people dismiss that about him.
Allegedly. We don't want to be sued. Allegedly.
See, so it's this conversation is long overdue, but it is long overdue only because the wider conversation of white supremacy as the foundation for what this country really is has been avoided for 450 years. So now here we are. Let's bring it back down to the little funnel of the progressive movement. So now all of that stuff is coming to the fore.
Yeah,
right?
but I wanted to make one more point before we move on.
Okay.
Is about the situation with the sexual assaults that's been coming out. Is now one of the things that I've witnessed and that I noticed in everything that's come out from Weinstein and everything that we mentioned earlier is that it is a class fight.
Okay, yeah.
And what I mean by that it's a class fight, you were correct, Jackie, to bring up the domestic workers, to bring up black women, the sexual assaults of black women during slavery and even up to today. But it is a class thing. And the reason why it's class thing, because most of the people that have been, most of the women that have been coming out have been mainly upper middle class white women. And that's cool. I think that if this is going to be a real, honest assault on this type of behavior, then we need to take it away from individuals, or not. I mean, not just leave it at individuals, but we need to go to systems.
Right.
And the reason why I say we need to go to systems because you have black women and poor women who are in the state penitentiaries right now being sexually molested and harassed
Mm.
in the state prison systems.
Mm-hmm.
You also have black immigrant women who are working in these hotels
Mm-hmm.
in this country, who are dealing with sexual harassment from powerful or influential clients.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so what I'm saying is the fact that this fight is a lot bigger than Charlie Rose. It's a lot bigger than everything else when it comes to respect of the sexual bounds that we see.
Right.
You know, so but right now it's really being confined, in my view, as upper middle class, upper middle class fight of women, like we seen again, even when it came to the NFL. And I don't want to stray off too much,
Mm-hmm.
but what what I was trying to say is the fact that this is something that really needs to be looked at. I personally, as a black man, was kind of confused because even within our own circles of conversation,
Mm-hmm.
and we had black women who were, calling black men terrorists,
Right. Right.
and the straight black men are the white men and all this other kind of stuff. And then all of a sudden now, it's like, okay, as far as Conyers and a few others,
Mm-hmm.
this don't really seem to be a black male problem. As in relation to what we've been seeing.
Right.
You know what I mean? Now you got plenty of black men that got money.
Mm-hmm.
You got plenty of. I mean, when I mean plenty of black, we got plenty of black men that got, whether they're entertainers, sports figures, or whatever. And then we have to really ask ourselves this question too: is that if we're going to take this fight to the newsrooms and politics and stuff, then that same assault got to start focusing on the groupies on these tour buses and a whole lot of stuff. When Nelly was accused of by one of the groupies of raping her, and somehow they got squashed or whatever. But it's just a big problem in this country that demands our attention all the way.
Yeah, and I think we have to be. It's a really delicate conversation to have. It is an incredibly delicate conversation to have because while you want to hold people accountable for their behavior, like I said earlier, you don't want to go on witch hunts against people. Unwarranted. That's unwarranted because somebody accused them and you don't have any evidence. You don't want to go on a witch hunt against people, but at the same time, you don't want to not hold everyone accountable who's responsible for taking advantage of vulnerable people, even if some of those people who took advantage of vulnerable people are women. Right? So, I mean, it is a very delicate, difficult, messy, hard conversation to have. But because this is all being exposed as the way so many of American institutions have grown to prominence and power and influence, we don't have time for people being frauds when we're tackling how to deal with what we do with the wreckage of this faulty empire that was built on this ridiculous foundation of power and corruption and abuse of power. We don't have time for people who are not willing to do the hard work of being educated on what the issues really are and sometimes being confused because some of those issues are not real clear cut. And like I said, they're sticky and they're difficult conversation. And we don't have all of the answers, but we don't have time for people not taking responsibility for their behavior, regardless of who those people are. And we don't have time for people playing games, being opportunists, seizing on to the current scandal so they can get likes and they can get a boost in their post reach and they can get some additional Patreon contributors so they can have the next salacious story. We can't afford to be a bunch of ambulance chasers in this movement that were chasing the latest scandal because see the issues remain the same. Regardless of who the players or the personalities are in this week's issue. The issue that we keep avoiding having conversations about, that remains. So in this issue, of as this whole sexual assault issue has come to the fore, it started me thinking also about the 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 attitude that a lot of black people who have been struggling for black liberation for a long time, decades, need to have, as we should be ready to do whatever it is we need to do as this white male supremacist empire is indeed crumbling. And it is crumbling. It's crumbling slowly. It's crumbling a lot more slowly than we would have wanted it to. But every empire crumbles under its own weight. That's what happens. History's shown us. So just like in the progressive movement, we don't have time for frauds who are just opportunists and out for their latest post reach bump. Among the black liberation movement, we don't have time for frauds either. We really don't have time for frauds. Right?
Well, I mean, and the thing of it is that because we one of the reasons why that we decided to do this live stream today, because we got clowns out there, and we got clowns out there that's passing themselves off as and black clowns. White folks, y'all can sit down, take a break. You got
the focus is off them.
Right. You got these black clowns out there that are going around here talking about, passing themselves off as these tin pan revolutionaries, these fake teppers and all this other kind of stuff. And it's really causing damage to the movement and to the work that we got to do. I was really upset that that my wife was involved in a very, it started off as a very good discussion on this clown's page. And I don't want to call his name out because I don't want to, he's an attention seeker anyway, and I don't even want to give him no attention. But my wife was on the page where she was having a, pretty good conversation, and she disagreed with this guy. Now I didn't have much interaction with this guy, as I don't have a lot of interaction with a lot of people that Jackie interacts with. But what happened is that he got a little nasty on there about when they were going back and forth, and this ridiculous thing of that so many so-called black activists agree, or these so-called hoteppers, that every time Thanksgiving and Christmas come around, you get the same old thing. Black people need to boycott Christmas. Black people need to stop spending their money with Arabs, and they need to stop. They need to spend money with black people and stuff. And so the thing, so the thread was on that, and so the conversation was going pretty good. And then all of a sudden, this clown decides that he wants to get personal. He wants to, say, horrible things to my wife, who can defend herself. But, he wanted to say all of these horrible things. And in spite of, man, I ain't all the way there. You know what I mean? I come on here and I try to be civilized. I try to be all this and stuff like that. But what you ain't fitting to do is sit up here and think that you just going to come at my wife any kind of way. Actually, and for those of you who might get a little offended by what I'm about to say, but don't think that because we can sit up here, and this is for and if it don't apply, let it fly. But don't think that because I read a few books and seen a few things and all this other kind of stuff, don't try to read me, and don't think that you're going to come here and come in the Luqman sphere of influence and think that you're going to create chaos. It's not going to happen. I'm not going to let it happen. So so that being said, as Don Corleone said, if it happens again, then I won't forgive. So that's the thing. But getting back to the thing is the fact that with this whole boycotting of Christmas and Thanksgiving and all this other kind of stuff, when it comes to black people, we want to set the record straight.
Mm-hmm.
Because what happens is that black people, poor black people in particular, are always being shamed. And we said this on the show before, that every time there's a behavior and you put, it's mathematics,
Mm-hmm.
black plus behavior equals negative something.
Yep.
Black plus this equals negative something. Black plus this behavior equals negative something. You know, so if you look at that equation, you see that that's the way that the black community and the poor black community have always been beaten up by even black folks.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and we took this way back in the history, whether it was under Du Bois' Talented Tenth, whether it was under the racial ideas that some of the black intelligentsia have adopted about
Mm-hmm.
poor blacks.
Mm-hmm.
This stuff isn't new.
Right.
You know, it's nothing new of people who think that they can police what they consider policing the bad habits of poor black people. This is nothing new. This is rooted in our history. So, Jackie, you got some stuff here that
Mm-hmm.
you're going to talk about what is the truth.
Right.
What is the truth? I mean, my God, is it that bad that poor black people want to go to McDonald's on the first of the month, or they want to buy some Jordans, or they want to
Mm-hmm.
buy this? So, what is really the truth, as opposed to all of the hype? So, Jackie, what you got for us?
So here's the thing. In the context of the reason poor black people are poor is because we spend so much money on frivolous things, and especially during the holidays. You know, the idea that black people are making Arabs and Jews and Hispanics and white people. Did I leave out a group of people that's supposedly making money off us? Was that everybody?
Yeah, Indians,
Arabs,
yeah.
Jews, white people, Hispanics. Did I get Hispanics? Yeah. Everybody else is making money off black people, especially over the holidays, other than black people. So some people's idea is, well, just don't spend any money because we won't put any money in those people's pockets. Okay, the idea that black people are all by ourselves, black people who have almost no wealth, black people whose incomes are lower than anybody else's incomes and has stayed lower than everybody else's incomes for the past 30 years. The idea that people with no money are making everybody else rich is ridiculous. This myth that black people are throwing away all of this spending power that we have is just some crap. This is from one of our favorite sites and sources. I mix what I like. This is from Dr. Jared Ball. He actually retweeted this in response to my tweet about this on Twitter. So we are going to have to reach out to Dr. Jared Ball and see if he will come on our show and talk about this himself. But this is what he says. The claim that African America has roughly $1 trillion in buying power is popularly repeated mythology with no basis in sound economic logic or data. While the myth has a longer history, it is today largely propelled by misreadings and poor, otherwise known as false, interpretations of Nielsen surveys and marketing reports produced by the Selig Center for Economic Growth at the Terry College of Business, housed in the Bank of America Financial Center in Athens, Georgia. Buying power is a marketing phrase that refers only to the power of consumers to purchase what are strictly available goods and is used as a measurement for corporations to better market their products. Power has nothing to do with actual economic strength. And there is no collective $1 trillion in black power in buying power that black people have and just foolishly spend ignorantly to their economic detriment. Lord have mercy, let me read that again. Power here has nothing to do with actual economic strength, and there is no collective $1 trillion plus that black people have and just foolishly spend ignorantly to their economic detriment. Then we have to come to this idea of boycotts, right? This idea that if black people would just boycott Christmas, if we would just boycott Black Friday, if we would just boycott Thanksgiving, if we would boycott all the, President's Day sale and all of the sales, if we would just boycott, then we could grow the black economy. Well, there's a problem with that thinking too, because there's a reason boycotts don't work when it comes to economics in our case. So beyond the idea of access, remember what I just read from Dr. Jared Ball about the availability, right? Because we first of all, we don't have $1 trillion plus $1 trillion or more of disposable income. That's basically what that means. We don't have that. That is not even true. Then there is the truth that even among middle class and wealthy black people, they don't even spend more money than white people do, because there is not the same availability of goods and services in black communities. So even black people with some change don't just frivolously spend their money. Middle class black people, according to an article in the Atlantic, middle class black people with higher incomes don't even spend more than white people on groceries. Why? Because how many of us live in neighborhoods where there isn't a grocery store?
Yeah, I mean, food deserts.
I mean,
can't spend your money where it ain't nowhere to spend it at.
So then, of course, there's the idea that, if you just buy black. So if there's no black grocery, if there's not a grocery store in my neighborhood where that shows that I'm not spending all of my money frivolously on groceries, I'm not even buying more food than white people do, then how am I going to buy black when there's no store in my neighborhood, not even a black one?
Let me tell you something, one thing about it, and I'm going to be as honest as I can.
Please do.
And black people need to stop that bullshit. They need to stop that bullshit about buying black and this and that. Look, if you grew up in the hood, most of the black, most of the economy that we deal with in the black community is underground economy. Because we don't have the stores anymore. We don't have the businesses anymore. When I lived in Paterson, New Jersey, I can recall, and I seen it in Newark, I seen it here in D.C., wherever I've lived at, where there were black folks and the underground economy. Black people would sit up there and say, for example, every community got the meat man.
Right.
Let's deal with the meat man. I want to deal with the meat man, all of you so-called buy black frauds. Let's deal with the meat man. I watched in Paterson, New Jersey, where the meat man in Paterson, because we got one in D.C. too, the meat man in Paterson would come through. Got steaks, I mean prime cut, whatever. All of this kind of stuff, right? And what he does is the meat man comes through and, and he offers his wares for a pretty decent price. He knows the folks he's dealing with. Right? So then all of a sudden now, you got these so-called church-going, highfalutin black folk that want to sit up there and worry about where the meat man get his meat from. Right? Now the meat man, they want to know where the meat man get his meat from, talking about, oh God, I hope he didn't steal and stuff. But yet I watched the same in the same community, Spanish people who in their underground economy come through with their little stuff, their little ices and whatever stuff that they hustling. And the Spanish people don't ask them where they get it from. They don't ask them about, that rice that you trying to sell me, you sure you got that? They don't ask that. But I have seen black merchants, because that's what I call them. There's no way that you can be so damn holy in a country that has oppressed you but so much. So then all of a sudden now, then you got all these black folks coming through talking about, oh, I'm all right. I'm all right. And the meat man saying, well, since I can get a deal, I'm all right. You know what I mean? The same jokers that would go down there and buy from somebody else. But then when it comes around to the holidays and stuff, now everybody wants to be Marcus Garvey. Everybody want to practice group economics between November and December.
Right.
But every time that and I know that somebody that has something for sale and they said, we have this whole criteria of why we can't spend our money with them because well, I don't know where you got that from, or I don't know this, and y'all Negroes know it's the truth. You know it's the truth. I lived amongst you, so I know it's the truth. Yep. But all of a sudden now, because white folks is listening, now you want to pretend that now all of a sudden now, we only gonna buy black. Well, let's put it this way, Jackie, before I give it back to you.
No, go ahead.
If we so much about buying black, then damn it to hell, take DC for instance. If we were so much about buying black, DC would not have went from 3,200 black businesses in the 1970s all the way down to 800 if we bought black.
Wow.
And that's what the statistics are. So you got Chocolate City with 3,200 businesses in the 1970s owned by black people. Now in 2017, there's less than 1,000. So if we was all about buying black, then how we lose all that? Now, mind you now, not counting for bad business practices on the black owners and all that stuff, but we need to stop lying to ourselves. We need to stop lying to ourselves and pretending that we support each other more than we do. We don't.
We don't. We absolutely don't. I mean, and this idea that taking a very small and finite period of time and scrutinizing what black people spend our little bit of money on and making it seem as if we either buy from black people that one particular period of time in history, this 2-3, what is it, a month?
Right.
Between Thanksgiving and Christmas, but to that 30 days, if we just buy black for that 30 days, we're going to rebuild Black Wall Street. Get the hell out of here. When on November 15th, you were down at T-Mobile renewing your cell phone plan and paying more for your cell phone plan than white people pay, even poor white people. When on November 5th, on November 20th, you were down at Safeway, at Giant, at ShopRite, at Aldi's. We love Aldi's, but Aldi's is not a black-owned store. I'm just saying, you buy your groceries every other time of the year, every other day of the year from stores that are not owned by black people. All of your services, your goods and services, with the exception of a few online retailers and black-owned stores that might exist in your community, by and large, the truth is, everybody in this country, with the exception of people who have stores in their communities that people in their communities have built because they have already practiced a form of group economics. And we talked about this in church Sunday.
Yep.
Let me tell y'all something. I know we're a little bit off topic right now, but I'm going to get to the boycott thing in a minute. I am. We attended church where we had a talk back session after church where we had a woman whose family is from Portugal. And we had a man whose family is from the Caribbean. And we have our pastor who is like an old school, chain yourself to the fence, protesting for jobs for some people, union organizing radical.
From Baltimore.
Who went up against Whitey Bulger in Boston to organize hotel work. Our pastor ain't no joke. Sorry. We're proud that we are members of this man's congregation, because after church, after the service, we sat in the church and we talked about how other communities build community and are able to do things like buy up entire blocks of houses. Right. And that seems not to be something that the black community in America has been able to replicate. And we talked about why, and they were honest about why. They do things that are based in principles that have been stripped from us here. So, and no, I'm not going to tell you what they are right now, because you have to tune in for another show on another night for us to talk about those things, because they are important. But it's not that they are better than us. It's not that they're smarter than us. It's not that they spend their money more wisely than we do. That's bullshit. It is not that poor black people are taking our money and giving our money to these people, and that's why they are making money. They're not making their money off of us, because we have none. So chastising poor black people about putting some clothes on layaway or some toys on layaway for their kids, the one time of the year they are able to do that, not only is that petty and it's hateful, but it's also misguided and it's ignorant. Because not doing those things is honestly, I swear to God, not going to change our collective reality as far as economics in this country is concerned. If we all boycott Black Friday and Christmas and Thanksgiving the next 5 years, then all we have done is shaved off maybe 2 years of the 228 years that it will take us to catch up with the wealth that every other group of people has, that has been denied us and stolen from us. So boycotting, it's not, unless we're talking about pushing a particular company to change their policies about a particular issue, not support a candidate here, or close down or not build a factory there. Boycotting a time of year and not spending any money, that's not going to benefit Black people either. Let me tell you why. Black families on the lower end of the income spectrum pay more. Even if we boycott Black Friday, y'all, even if we don't go to Walmart and get that $87 flat screen that they only have 3 of, by the way. If you didn't know, that's the scam. That is the scam. So you camp out overnight, and the 3 people that were in front of the door, they already got the TV. But we pay more for long-term contracts on things like cell phones, utility bills. We pay more for groceries, even though we don't spend as much money on groceries, because we have to go to the grocery store more frequently, because
we have to drive,
or we have to catch public transportation, so that costs extra money.
Oh yeah. Let's say we have to drive, but for those but maybe that's not Black enough, So so maybe for the authentic ones. Maybe I need to let people in on the joke, but the thing of it is that for those of us who have to take the bus, that's an additional expense.
Yep. So things, everyday things like your cell phone bill, your water bill, the electric, car insurance. If you're lucky enough to have a car insurance, Black people pay more for. Health insurance, Black people pay more for, even if we make a pretty good amount of money. Studies have shown, investigations have shown that we are still charged higher interest rates for mortgages and auto loans and insurance rates. So even if we never participate in another Black Friday, every single one of us just decided that we were all going to practice Kwanzaa for the rest of our natural lives, those things would still be true. We'd still be paying more money for utility bills. We'd still be paying more money for cell phone service. We would still be paying more money for car insurance, mortgages. We'd still be. Your boycotting Thanksgiving don't do shit for Black economics. The only thing it does when people say that garbage is it presents this fake air of consciousness about them, like they doing something radical. There's nothing radical about being ignorant. I swear there isn't. I just, let me finish because we got 5 minutes and I really want to get the rest in here. All right, so this whole boycott thing, let's boycott. Why don't we just not spend money? Because the idea is that if Black people spend any money over the holidays, then we must be participating in our own oppression. That's the, thank you for reminding me. We must be financing our own oppression if we go out and buy a turkey for Thanksgiving. Because we want to have our family, together, and that's one of the times when families get together. But, if we participate in if we only do that on Thanksgiving, then we don't know the real meaning of family, because family is every day of the year. So there must be something wrong with Black people who only do it on Thanksgiving. And if you spend any money during the holidays, then you're financing your own oppression. Well, here's the thing. If we all stopped financing our own oppression and didn't do it anymore for the rest of our natural lives, guess what? There's always another buyer. While we would like to believe that our failure to purchase oil, slave labor goods, or a cheeseburger will send a resounding message to corporate abusers, the fact is, long-term impacts of our choices are small. Because that's how little economic power we have in this country. We don't have any economic power. There's no such thing as holiday economics for black people. It's just, I mean, black people go buying gifts for their families or going to a party during the holidays. That's just human beings wanting some nice things and to have a nice time. One time out of their long ass miserable year of drudgery and toil.
Yep.
Who the hell are you to deny that to people who work hard? What is your problem? How miserable do you have to be that you have to actually sit there and lay on the shoulders of people who just want a little bit of enjoyment one time in the damn year? What kind of miserable monster are you that you will lay the oppression of the entire race of people on the shoulders of those folks because they want an $87 TV from Walmart and some toys for their kids on layaway? What the hell is your problem?
Yeah, especially when you wait, especially when you wasted the whole year up until that point, when you didn't even bother to organize them prior to that point. So now, you have that whole year that's going through. You didn't say anything to them. You ain't organized them. You ain't did nothing to politically educate them on why they should even boycott anything. And then, so now all of a sudden now Halloween came and gone. Now you decided now you're going to police black people.
Right.
Ain't had nothing to do with them prior to that.
Nope. And let's end on this. We believe that the one surefire remedy to the economic situation, the dire economic situation that black people are in this country, can only be solved through politics. We really do believe
you have to have
that
black politics.
We must have black politics, and the black politics honestly has to be black people need to get our reparations and we need to get them first. And unless you are a politician who believes in that, then no, we're not going to vote for you. And I know that's a very difficult thing for a lot of people to get their minds around, especially white people, especially progressives. We've seen it. Don't try to argue that y'all don't have a problem with it. We know you do. You'll come around, because I hope you're starting to see that unless black people get justice, nobody gets it. That's why all of this other stuff is happening. Because the injustice against the least among us in this country has gone on for so long that the people who were wielding the power, they just started doing stuff to everybody else.
Yeah, I like what Yvette Carnell says all the time, and I got this from her, so I'm definitely giving her credit for it. If any politician don't talk about putting money in black folks' pocket, then we have no use for them.
No,
don't come to my church. I don't need you to I don't need you to talk to me in no preaching cadence. I don't need you to sing to me some old Negro hymn.
Right.
I don't need for you to patronize me on that level. Right. I don't need you to go on my radio shows I listening to talking about you got hot sauce in your bag or whatever the latest pop culture thing is that you want me to know that you're down with that. I don't need you to talk to me in slang. I don't need you to tell me that you watch Real Housewives of Atlanta. I don't need none of that stuff. What I need you to do is tell me that if you want my vote, how are you going to put money in my pocket and in the pocket of those who live around me?
Exactly.
That's all I want to hear.
Exactly. And coming from some people who had the perfect opportunity to get a piece of some political power, or at least a political apparatus, and shape that thing to be the vehicle for what people in an embattled community needed, but walked away from it instead because there's racism in the Green Party. No shit, Sherlock. It's the United States of America. There's racism in all the parties. There's racism everywhere. The foundation of this country was built on racism. You're going to encounter racism everywhere you go. I don't care where it is. If a little bit of racism is going to scare you away from the work, then you're a fraud. And that's what we don't have time for. Because it's not like these people who built this empire, their descendants and the beneficiaries of this empire and the people who built it are going to let go of the reins of the empire. They're not just going to give it up. They're not just going to sit back and go, oh, well, ride's over. You know, we had a good run. All right, here you go. We're going to hand everything over to you. Oh, no, they're going to fight to hold on to what little bit of power they have left with tooth and nail. That's what Bannon is doing. Yeah. That's what this entire Trump administration is. It is the last gasp of the white male supremacist patriarchal empire, holding on to the power that they built, that they were the beneficiaries of, with every little bit of strength they have left. That's what it is. So, I mean, I understand that it's frustrating to always have to fight with white people about why we need to put black people's voices at the center of our political struggles, but that's the work. Because that's always been the work. If you read history, you would know that has always been the work.
You know, one of the things, and you know, we got to wrap it up, but one of the things that I wish that the black activists would do, I mean, we have, with our little modest platform that we have, trust me, you know, we have offered people who claim that they were about this work, black folks now, this way, white folks, y'all can sit down again. We have offered black folks the opportunity to use what little modest platform we have in order to build alliances, to inform other folks what's happening in their area, you know, to get the word out, you know, and we offered this to some of these people. I mean, and they spit in our face. And what I mean by that is that they never took advantage of it. You know, they never took advantage of it. They never tried to build. Jackie went out there to Chicago, and it was supposed to be this coming together with this black political agenda and everything like that. And the thing of it is the fact that you know, this is what the work should be about. But because we got so many personality-driven people, as opposed to principle-driven people, that's why these things can't get done. So you would take over a party where you at and be at the driver's seat, but because it's all about you, because it's all about your personality, now all of a sudden now, you give the keys away, you leave the keys on the car seat, you walk away, and all of these people you claimed you was fighting for now don't have no vehicle in order to even start to even discuss black political black politics and have a black political agenda. Where you was given the keys to the car, you decided that you didn't want to do it. So now, you know, so now we got these people who are walking around here and all they know how to do is shout slogans and regurgitate these nonsensical statements that don't mean nothing to nobody. You know what I mean? The black woman is God until she disagrees with you.
Right. Then she needs to go kick rocks.
Right. So the black woman is God until she disagrees with you. Poor black people are your people until they ain't about ready to be let off the cliff by you, or you can't control what they do. You know what I mean? This requires adult thinking. This requires grown-ups in this. You can't come here, man, with a milk bottle, a baby bottle. You can't come into this arena with your blanket and your milk bottle and sit up there and whine and talk about you want to take your marbles home because you found out that you're in a room full of adults. And ain't nobody got time for that, you know. So if we're going to advance the agenda of black people, if we're going to advance the agenda of black politics, then folks got to grow up. Mm-hmm. Folks got to grow up and realize, man, that ain't nobody gonna bow down at your altar. Just like we don't want nobody to, like we don't have no altar to bow down. But what we do say is that we're about this work. You know what I mean? And look, it's plenty of room for everybody.
Yeah.
So so either you with it or you ain't.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's we don't have time for frauds in this movement. I don't care what movement you're in. If it's progressive, you call it progressive. If it's Black Liberation Movement, Black Power, Pan-Africanist, if it's whichever party you belong to, we don't have time for frauds. We don't have time for people who are in it for themselves. We know we're going to encounter those people, but we don't have time to entertain those people. There's too much at stake, and we've got too much work to do. So, and in that work, there's room for everybody. There's something for everybody to do. There's a role for everybody. Not everybody needs to be out front, but if you want to do that, you can do that too. Just make sure that you are willing to be held accountable to other people when they catch your slip showing. And if you're not willing to do that, then you're not grown up enough for this. You're not. So thanks for joining us, y'all, tonight on our little impromptu show here live in Luqman Nation. We will be back tomorrow. Yes.
Well, tomorrow.
We're not?
No, it's the holiday. We ain't going to come back tomorrow.
We're not? Oh, no. Well, my executive producer made an executive decision that we will not have a show tomorrow because it's the holiday. So there you go. This was your holiday show. This is the great part about doing your own thing, being your own boss, not answering to anybody else. Well, I do answer to my sexy right here. So look, we hope y'all have a really wonderful holiday, regardless of how you mark the occasion. If you do it with family, if you do a big thing, a big spread, a big feast, or if you don't, just have a good time, be safe, be good to each other, share this video, find us, like us, subscribe to us, follow us on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, under Luqman Nation, LuqMannation. Please go to our GoFundMe account to support our endeavors for elevating the stories of voices for justice in communities that are ignored across the country, and to support our documentary, Baltimore After the Fire. Thanks a lot for joining us, everybody. Have a great night and a wonderful holiday. Peace.